Well, the answer might surprise you. I wear three hats. My first hat is that of a responsible father. So, if I'm able to see three of my children successfully placed in different walks of life and doing remarkably well for themselves, I would consider that as a great achievement. My second greatest achievement would be a very successful 32-year-old marriage. Marriage to my life partner and wife, and extremely successful in a world that is increasingly looking at separations, alternative lifestyles, and so on. My third achievement would be as a teacher who have had the privilege of teaching hundreds of youngsters to reach their potential, to realize their dreams, and to build great futures. And of course, from a professional perspective, my biggest achievement has been building institutions and the rise of SP Jain School of Global Management as a top 10 business school in the world has been an amazing experience for me because I was part of the founding team that was responsible for setting up the first campus in Dubai, later on setting up the second campus in Singapore, then getting our accreditation from Australia and establishing the Sydney campus, and finally the Mumbai campus. And in the shortest period of time, we've become a world-beating business school by being the youngest school in the world to reach the top 10, top 20, and top 100 rankings in some of the most prestigious rankings, Financial Times, Economist, and the Forbes rankings in the last 5 years. And I believe that is a significant achievement. Of course, it could not have been done without the collaboration and cooperation of the entire team at SP Jain in different campuses, but I've had a significant role to play, being the first employee to be employed by SP Jain Global on this remarkable adventure. Now, this is an interesting question because a lot of times success is predetermined by the way you handle failure. So, handling failures would be the highest hallmark of success. And if you look at the history of the greatest people on the planet in any field, you would find their lives riddled with failures. Because all of us go through failures. But I think what separates the successful people from the not so successful people is the ability to look at failures as not failures but as stepping stones. And in my personal life, I've had many challenges. My entire life has been a series of accidents, quote unquote. And where I am today is thanks to the grace of God and the ability to look at setbacks and challenges as opportunities to learn, as opportunities to grow. Also, if you look at my background, my first degree was in English literature, where I was a university rank holder. And I was doing my second master's in English literature when my sister had to study an interesting course which was available only in a men's college. And just because I had to accompany her as a colleague, I quit my master's degree in English literature and joined master's in social work. Not by choice, but by the circumstances. A setback, but looked at it as an opportunity. I got into my first introduction into management. After I successfully finished the master's in social work with a university rank, I got an extremely exciting offer with Oberoi Hotels in their human resources department. Again, family pressures prevented me from taking up that opportunity. And they refused to send me to hotel management because they said a hotel job is not an acceptable job in the family. I come from a traditional South Indian background. So again, there was setback, there was depression, but my mother was able to offset that by giving me an opportunity to do an MBA. So even my MBA was not by choice, but by an accident. So all these happened, and as it happened, and every career change I made was for the better, because it was a setback, it was a failure, or it was a challenge. But each one gave me amazing lessons to learn as to what I did wrong and how I could have done it better. And I think this accumulation of failures and experiences is what defines success. So today, if I'm sitting as the CEO of one of the top 10 business schools in the world, it is because of the way I look at failures as opportunities and not as setbacks. So that, I would say, is the mantra for anybody. Failure is a constant, but the ability to handle failures is what makes the difference. Whether you're a Steve Jobs, whether you're a Michael Jordan, or whether you're a Christopher Abraham, I think it's the ability to handle failures which makes the difference, which defines success and the rest of us. My first job was as a consultant. I had the privilege of being part of one of India's leading consulting firms and had the rare privilege of working on some of the most exciting projects in the 1980s, including Titan watches from concept to completion. I was part of a team that worked on identifying a great idea, which was quartz watches, and then getting into luxury branding of watches, and then Titan watches becoming a global brand, even changing the consumption pattern and consumption behavior of watch ownership in a traditional market like India. And then I have done projects for Hindustan Latex Limited, Moods Condoms, which was primarily a government subsidized unit which wanted to get into the branded condom market. And we had the privilege of working on one of India's most successful condom brands, Moods, which is now exported to more than 100 plus countries. I've also worked with the government of India on some many exciting projects. Things are going very fine, and I was on the high road towards success when the challenge bug bit me, and I quit a high-paying, high-profile job as a consultant and moved on to hardcore street selling with Xerox. So I became a regional territory manager for Xerox in South India. The original interview with the general manager went like this. They were totally convinced that I could never do sales and marketing because I was a consultant with a different background. I challenged myself, I challenged the general manager. Reluctantly, they agreed to give me a chance with a 3-month hardcore probation where I would quit if I don't deliver. But that turned out to be a great opportunity, and I actually became one of the most successful salespersons, which also helped me to see that I could have skills in selling and marketing other than consulting. And moved on there. Things were going fine. So people said if you can sell products, you can't sell concepts. So I quit Xerox in 2.5 years. And I moved on to a company called TNT Skypack, which was one of the pioneers in courier and logistics services. Today, one of the top 5 courier companies or logistics companies in the world. It's an Australian company. Worked with them for 2 years. And then the passion for giving back. I'm a voracious reader. I read all kinds of books in different fields. I wanted to give back. The best way you can give back is to teach people. So I applied for National Service Commission in India, got selected as one among thousands of applicants. Very few get selected. I was one among 2 who got finally selected for Regional Engineering College Trichy, which is now National Institute of Technology, Tiruchirappalli, which is one of the top 10 engineering colleges in India. I had the privilege to be an assistant professor in the Department of Management Studies. So it happened, I would say, by choice and by passion. Probably one of the rare moments when I chose something and got into it. But something else happened. While I was there for a good 2.5, 3 years, I realized there's a big world outside my small world in India, and more specifically in South India. I saw many of my students whom I had taught and whom I had groomed and mentored going on to very interesting positions and places across the world. And I knew there's a big world outside to explore. So in 1994, I bid goodbye to a very good high-profile professor's job in one of the most prestigious academic institutions. Took a huge leap of faith and a big risk and landed in the Gulf in December 1994. Very bluntly put, my first assignment in the Gulf was a disaster. I had to unlearn a lot of things I had learned in my first consulting company, in Xerox and in TNT and in REC, Trichy. And I was on the verge of going back when some sane advice from a colleague of mine said, you don't need to fret and fume and make quick decisions. you'll pretty soon get used to the chaos. I stayed there for a year, got my license, and I was waiting for the next break, which actually happened in 1996. And I moved out of my first company, I wouldn't like to share the name, and moved on to the Al Group in Dubai, where I was given an opportunity to run their learning center or training institution. It started with 7 students, and in almost 9 years, I brought it to one of the leading education institutions in the UAE. It was called the Al Institute of Technology. We had partnerships with the University of Guildhall, London Guildhall University, University of Portsmouth, and more significantly, XLRI in India. I was part of the team that originally brought XLRI, which is Asia's top business school from India, and we were running the postgraduate programs. And a couple of years down the line, Jain wanted to establish a campus in Dubai. So they invited me to join as a consultant. I joined them as a consultant, and that's how I was part of the founding team, as I said earlier. And the rest, as the cliche goes, is history. Today, I don 3 big hats. One as the head and CEO of the campus. I also am a professor who teaches leadership, design thinking, organizational behavior, strategy, and bits and pieces of the science of happiness and neuroscience. And I dwell into different areas where I can mentor faculty, staff, and students. And the third role I play is as the director for the Executive Education Center, where we do a lot of corporate programs for some of the leading corporates in the region. This has been the journey so far, and I'm looking forward to some exciting stuff. I think the biggest joy when you're a teacher is the joy of giving. There's a lot of neuroscience evidence that more than taking, there's greater joy when you give back. And probably that's the passion that drives people like me who are able to give back to society in many different ways of advice, of mentorship, of coaching, and of course sharing of knowledge and wisdom. Very interesting question, because I think one of the biggest challenges for all of us is time management, which I would like to reframe as life management. Because every day's time is a slice of your life. And so the good thing is that a God-given gift of 24 hours equal to everybody. How does one use it versus how does one abuse it, I think makes the difference. So there are things which we call time wasters and time distractors. Before the onslaught or onset of technology, we had lesser distractions, which were more human. But now we have these huge technological contraptions like smartphones and iPhones and smart tablets and smart computers and smart televisions, which are all labeled smart and have made us dumb because we have become slaves to it. And I think the biggest lesson for me is, how do I judiciously balance smart technology with smart behavior? Because a lot of times we miss that. So as I said earlier, I have a huge passion for reading, and I need to read at least for 5 to 6 hours. And if I have to do that, I have to trade off between some of these smart technologies, which is viewing the television, using my telephone for social media connections, WhatsApp, emails, whatever. So I would like to judiciously draw a line. So I know my priorities, that I have to acquire knowledge for minimum 5 to 6 hours. I need to sleep for about 6 to 7 hours. So 6 to 7 hours of sleep, 4 to 5 hours or 5 to 6 hours of reading. So that's almost about more than half a day is gone. The remaining is what I have. I have a simple mantra, and this might sound too good to be true, but it is. A few years back, I was knocked on the head by a revelation that I'm wasting a lot of my time. I mean, a typical day for most of us would start by looking at the smartphone. And the moment you start with the smartphone, you're looking at break news, you're looking at WhatsApp. Break news is all breaking news, which breaks your heart. There are terrorist attacks, there are earthquake victims, there are flood victims. There's no good news. And you get into WhatsApp, most of it is fake news. and you're wasting time. Then there are emails which become very serious. So I made a commitment to myself that every single day I would not touch the smartphone for the first 90 minutes. So then the question is, so what do you do in the first 90 minutes? I would start by thanking God for another amazing day. And there's a lot of neurological evidence on that. That you start with an attitude of gratitude. Your body, your brain actually secretes happy chemicals, which in turn get into your nervous system, which in turn ensures you have a bright, happy day, in spite of challenges and setbacks that could come through the day. So the first 90 minutes spent on thanking God, prayer, meditation, some element of basic exercise, some reading if possible in the morning, positive stuff, very conscious, not the newspapers, because there's a lot of negative stuff in the newspapers. I do read newspapers, but very selectively during the day. And then typically a day starts at 9:30. And I have a team that fixes different meetings for me, which are based. So your meeting was fixed by the team member. So there would be a number of these meetings that happen during different points of time. I ensure that I stick to that schedule and go for it. In between, there would be some unexpected challenges. Colleague gets hurt. A student had an aberrant behavior. Some of these things will just crop up least expected, but you would need to know how to judiciously handle it. Also, the art of delegation. You sitting at the helm of affairs can't be doing everything. You would need to delegate, you would need to trust your people, you would need to give responsibility to people, believe people can do it. Where they can't, you would help them, coach them, guide them. So a typical day is a set of priority tasks, a set of mundane regular tasks, and then meeting key stakeholders who would be external like you, or could be faculty members, could be staff members, and could be students, could also be parents who would come for advice, come for some kind of guidance, and it's your job to ensure that you do it. It's filled with all kinds of excitement. No one day is similar. It's pretty exciting. And let me not forget that I also have a responsibility towards my family, based out of different parts of the world. And so I need to keep in connect with them. Again, you can't push them back on your list of priorities. So you need to pick up the phone, call them up if they are in different places, find your time for them. And I think it's this judicious balance of professional, personal, and the social. So when I say social, it's the connections with your family. The personal is your personal space, your personal development, your personal meditation, your personal growth. That's the personal part. And the professional is what you do as a professional. I also do a lot of keynotes, conference speeches, talk in different forums, get invited to be part of many panel discussions. So I would prioritize accordingly. And it's a busy day, but it's fun because it's got a lot of variety and a lot of excitement to it. And you take everything with a smile. That's the best part. The definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who sees the opportunity and has the guts to take the risk. Currently, I am on an entrepreneurial journey where we are establishing a state-of-the-art recording studio in South India, more specifically for my second son, who is a qualified audio engineer. It has its own list of challenges, handling contractors, handling different stakeholders, handling prospective customers, handling internal stakeholders. Well, it's been a great ride. And I would say, because a lot of us have ideas, a lot of us see opportunities. But I think the big difference between the entrepreneur and the rest of us is that the entrepreneur not only has the idea, not only sees the opportunity, but has the courage and guts to take that leap of faith, which is on the border of risk and resilience. So I think that is what defines an entrepreneur. A lot of us have ideas. We keep thinking, I want to do this, I want to do that. And you find a lot of people wasting their life throughout without reaching there, because that next step of translating ideas into action is what makes the difference. And today I need to put this on record that for entrepreneurs, this is a golden age. Golden age because we live in a world of abundance, and I can validate this. This is not a feel-good statement. We live in a world of infinite possibilities and infinite opportunities. This is the golden age. Don't get carried away by what you read in the media, because the media will tell you there's recession. Yes, there's recession. The media will tell you that there are job losses. Yes, there are job losses. The media will tell you that petroleum prices are very volatile and coming down. Yes, they are volatile and coming down. But in spite of all this, we are missing one big point, that throughout history, humanity has surpassed these challenges and not only come out successful, but have started to thrive. And that's the real narrative. There's plenty of statistical evidence that we as humanity, because of this entrepreneurial zeal and this entrepreneurial ingenuity, the power of ideas to take us from one stage to the next, we today can thrive in an environment which is rife with challenges. So I think my message to entrepreneurs would be the same, because I've taken this leap of faith now after having consulted with so many people, so many entrepreneurs. I myself am an entrepreneur, and I know it's not easy, but it's very exciting. Very interesting question, because mission is a very powerful word. Mission actually relates to purpose. And I think each one of us need to answer this billion-dollar question: what is my purpose? And to put it in your words, what is my mission? It takes a lot of soul searching. So initially, it's a journey that you start without knowing your destination. You started the journey, but you don't know where it's going to end. But as you progress, as you travel in this beautiful journey, the setbacks, the failures, the excitements, the achievements, and then you realize there is a guided mission which is deep inside, and you need to identify it. For me, it came when I took the first important, passionate step towards becoming a teacher at REC Trichy. I realized that I can leave a legacy, I can make a difference if I'm able to share my knowledge and wisdom with a group of youngsters. So I think my mission today is exactly the same in different forms. So if I'm heading a world-class business school today, guiding the destinies of 500 to 600 people in a year, I think part of that mission is the accomplishment of telling people that there is a wonderful direction, there are a set of amazing goals to be achieved, and tomorrow, when that person meets you in an airport, a railway station, or in a common place and says, "Prof, I still remember what you said in class, and today, thanks to you, I'm successful, I'm so and so," I think my mission gets accomplished. And this mission accomplishment happens on a regular basis for teachers, because you find these successful stories all around you. And that's the greatest joy you can have when you know that your purpose in life is fulfilled when somebody else's success is reflected on your purpose. So I would say my purpose is making a difference, impacting youngsters, and leaving a legacy. Well, building an institution would have its biggest challenges with people. So finding the right people, finding the right kind of talent. So I'm not just talking about skills here. I'm talking about behavioral competencies, attitudes, and building the right kind of culture is an extremely challenging proposition for any institution builder. And I think throughout my career, that's, I think, the biggest challenge I've faced, to find the right people who can fit into a milieu. Because different institutions, different environments, different industries would require different kinds of people. But you need the right positive mindset. You need people with what we call growth mindsets to be part of winning teams, to take success and failures in its stride and then go towards it. I also believe in the autonomy of people, giving people the freedom to think and the freedom to do what they would like to do, and be there for them when they fall down or fall back. Well, the advice, I would say the greatest influence apart from God Almighty has been my mother. And mother herself was an extremely successful teacher. And she taught us two things. One is to be truthful and honest always, come whatever. So whether it results in a disaster or whether it results in success, notwithstanding, the process is equally important like the end. The means and the end have to be equally important. So absolute honesty authenticity, transparency. The second important thing she said, which I think is now ingrained into my genetic makeup, is the world is full of opportunities. It is for us to go out and seek those opportunities. And she herself had had an extremely successful life in different parts of India. So her reflection or her influence has been take it as it comes and always be looking around for opportunities and be there when it comes your way. Again, a very interesting question. It's how you look at work and how you define work. So, if work is your passion, and if that work gives you happiness, whatever it is, I said I play multiple roles, then that becomes part of your life and part of your enjoyment. So a typical 24-hour day, as I said, is spent, apart from the 6 to 7 hours of sleep and relaxation, is spent on various pursuits: professional, personal, social, and spiritual. And in each of these things, there are components of work that overlap. Because I do work with my family on building up this entrepreneurial enterprise. I do work with my colleagues and stakeholders in the company, but I don't look at any of this as work. I look at each of these things as a passionate pursuit of my happiness in different shades and different dimensions. There's this beautiful Chinese proverb that says, happiness is doing what you love to do and getting paid for it. And I think every day, that's what I do. I enjoy what I do, working with my family, working with my stakeholders, working on my personal development. So for me, except those 6 to 7 hours of relaxation, the remaining hours are spent on work, quote unquote, which is the pursuit of happiness and the pursuit of my passion. If that answers your question. Again, a very important question, because I think this is where a lot of us get stuck. So again, I have a simple discipline. I need to know what's happening in the world. So I check my mails, I check my social media, I check or watch key television news channels. I also have a bit of entertainment, which I do. And then I also ensure that these are all in disciplined chunks. So I might spend about half an hour to 1 hour checking the news of the day. Most of it is negative and disastrous, but I still need to know what's happening around in the world. Then I check my social media, LinkedIn for that matter, because it's very specific to professional connections. I have a fairly large, I'm touching the 10,000 mark followership very soon, 9,600 plus. So I think that's very important, because some of my key engagements and key growth opportunities have come from my LinkedIn connections. I don't use Facebook because I see that as a waste of time, to be honest. I can be quoted on this. I don't use Instagram. I think I should, because I haven't used it extensively. But LinkedIn to me has worked very well, because it has given me some very meaningful connections with some very interesting people. Some of them who became colleagues, some have become partners, some have become friends, and that has been extremely useful. So I spend about half an hour to 1 hour checking my LinkedIn profile, updating on my LinkedIn status, sending very interesting stuff on my opportunities and things that I do on a regular basis. That's been good. I have now a couple of very senior colleagues who help me in taking it forward. Emails, again, I prioritize. Prioritization for me is very simple. I answer a very simple question. What happens if I don't do this? If the answer is disastrous, if the answer is very serious consequences, then it takes top priority. The rest of it takes its own sweet time. And that's how I prioritize the daily mail. I do check every mail, and sometimes I answer quickly because it's a priority. Sometimes I might take. So again, it's a question of discipline, prioritizing, and chunking. We need to know how to split. We need to know how to discipline. Again, let me give you the good news. I come from a neuroscience perspective. I do a lot of research and a lot of reading on neuroscience. So initially, it's very difficult. So a lot of us get stuck in this habit of doing the wrong things at the wrong times extensively and get caught in the wrong. But here's my advice for you. I call it the 20-21-65 formula. It's 20 minutes of doing something every single day. So if I have to do emails, discipline, I would do 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. If I have to do jogging, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So whatever new discipline I want to have, it's 20 minutes every single day for the first 21 days. This is pure science, pure neuroscience. It's a neuroscience of habits. The moment you reach 21 days of 20 minutes diligently disciplined behavior, you move on to, that's the beginning of a habit. Then from the 21st day to the 65th day, you would continue doing it. And after that, it becomes a habit. After that, you don't need to do anything. Your brain is already programmed. In neuroscience terms, it's called rewired. It's already on that new rewired stage thanks to a science called neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain's faculty to change habits from a bad habit to a good habit, from a non-habit to a habit, can all be done through neuroplasticity. So that's the discipline behind it. That's the science behind it that does that. And I think, again, as a word of general advice, I would like to say this. Watch your thoughts. What kind of thoughts run in your mind on a minute-to-minute basis? Because we have two kinds of thoughts. Thoughts which are positive, thoughts which are negative. When I see the sun, bright sun shining outside, I could have two reactions. Oh my God, it's terribly hot and sunny. On the other hand, I can think of Canada and UK and say, oh my God, how blessed am I to have such a bright, sunny day in Dubai. It's a matter of perspective. It's the same sun, the same heat and the same light, but it's the way you look at it. And those thoughts translate into words. Words, first of all, internally, and then articulated externally. These words translate into actions. Actions translate into behaviors. Behaviors translate into habits. And habits become your character and destiny. This is a mantra that I have learned, and I ensure that everybody learns it. So whichever opportunity given, including this, I would ensure that I pass that good message outside, because that's the discipline. That's the answer to your question. That it takes time, not much. 2 months plus is all you need to learn a new amazing habit, and then it becomes part of you. Today I can't sleep without reading for 4 to 5 hours. That's a habit. Good habit. I can't get up in the morning without doing my meditation, my spirituality, my gratitude, prayer, so on and so on. As I said, it's a conscious decision, because I think a lot of us miss out on this. I've had instances of good friends, some close relatives, who are extremely successful in their careers and professional lives and in business, but lost out on the family. And here's a big lesson for all of us, and I learned it from others, that they would have a lot of time for their business, for their growth, for their career, and less time for the family. And when they are ready for the family is not ready for them. It's a very ironic fact of life. And having seen this firsthand, I said I need to change myself. So for example, my children are in different parts of the world. We at least speak to them once a day, minimum. It could be 15 minutes to 20 minutes or half an hour, 1 hour, depending on the time and different time zones, or we speak to them. We meet regularly during vacations in a common point. Could be Dubai, sometimes we fly to Canada, sometimes we fly to Australia, sometimes we go to India to converge all together. But these are conscious, planned initiatives. The other important thing, when we get together as a family, here's a simple example. There's a family day out. The family day out is a family day out. It means not with your mobile phones, not with your smart devices, but with your smart family members. So a simple example we have disciplined all our kids to do that. And the kids, my eldest son is married, so he's got a wife. All of us, we leave our mobile phones. If the dinner outside, we leave our phones inside the car. The world is not going to end. In 90 minutes to 2 hours, when you spend with your family over a dinner table, nothing great is going to happen. So we leave our phones consciously and then look at each other, spend quality, valuable time talking to each other about various things that matter to all of us. That's quality time. This is a conscious decision. This is a disciplined decision. It took a lot of time for my children to accept this decision. They had withdrawal symptoms without the mobile phones in their hands. But then we disciplined and then they started enjoying that moment. Now we look forward to such moments. I recently came back from a holiday where we virtually were away from online presence, which is one of the reasons it took time for me to answer your mails, because I would like to spend it with the family. So it's a conscious, disciplined decision. You have to do it, otherwise you lose your family, which I think is the greatest gift that God has given us. We need to balance them judiciously. My greatest strength has been the ability to look at setbacks as opportunities. I can smile at every failure. I can really do that because God has given me this unique ability to see that there is an opportunity there, even when it looks like a setback. So that I would say is my greatest strength. My weakness would be I'm very open. So sometimes people don't like that. I would say that straight, that this is not the way it should be done. Sometimes people don't like it. I'm not politically correct. I can't be. I would call a spade a spade. It has backfired, but that's me. I can't change myself for the sake of others. I think the greatest key factor would be the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. As I told you, I started off as a literature graduate. Today, I delve in neuroscience, artificial intelligence, behavioral science, cognitive psychology, behavioral economics, and I also read a little bit of poetry and literature. So what happens is that this continuous quest for knowledge and wisdom is what keeps you agile and resilient and helps you to thrive in an uncertain world. Keep learning. Very interesting question. I wouldn't want to call it a failure because, as I said, my perspective towards failure itself is okay. So my biggest failure would be, if I can put a context to it, is the non-ability, because I was grooming myself to become a journalist. I said I was a university gold medalist in my bachelor's and I was getting on to my master's in English literature. If I had successfully completed that, I would have certainly gone into journalism. But today when I look back, I don't look at that as a failure. I would look at it as a critical turning point, but with very strange circumstances. It was not by choice, as I told you. So yes, I felt a little disturbed, a little disappointed. I couldn't complete my master's in English literature because I wanted to be a journalist, a television journalist or a media journalist. It didn't happen. But then I started seeing things in a different perspective. My first exposure to psychology, behavioral sciences happened in my master's in social work. My first exposure to management and leadership and strategy happened in my MBA. So this has been a constant quest of learning new things. So even that failure, which was temporary, has been converted into an amazing opportunity. I would continue to do what I do, taking risks, taking those challenges, meeting these accidents, if I may call them that, and continuing exploring. That's the passion. I think it's again the quest for curiosity, the excitement of exploring new things, which is what keeps me going. So, which is why I read on different subjects, new things, new technologies, new knowledge, new areas. So that's what keeps me going. As I said, Almighty God, the Holy Bible, and my mother have been tremendous influences in my personality. I call them the women in my life. It has been my mother who has been the first amazing influence in my formative years. During my school days, like every youngster, I did take a path less trodden, and it was my sister who stood beside me. So she was the second influence. And then, as I said earlier, my partner in life, my partner in business, my partner in every single thing, my wife. And she has been a source of inspiration, the secret behind my success, because she would be the motivating factor, the balancing factor to push me to greater heights of excellence. She would always say, I'm cut out for something even greater, something even more remarkable. And now recently, when I say recently, about 16, 17 years back, after the birth of my daughter, she's been another tremendous influence. So I call them the women in my life. And I would say, I would attribute my success to these four women in my life. Apart, of course, from Almighty God, who is always there as a centerpiece. I think it's again a question of soul searching, exploration, curiosity. So for me, every new thing excites. So when there's artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, and all these new technologies came, there were a lot of mixed responses. People said they're going to kill jobs, they're going to kill the future of humanity. So I was curious, I was intrigued. And when I did my deep dive, I realized no, human ingenuity will still continue to survive and surpass all these technologies. So I think that drive, that passion to know more, to explore new arenas, to be curious, ask questions, that's what makes life worth living. I think the easiest reaction would be to ignore and then reflect. As I was saying, one of the things that I do on a regular basis is a reflective exercise, which happens probably as the last thing I do before I go to sleep. So I call it, for want of a better term, the movie of the day. Close your eyes and then reflect on everything that happened during the day, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So once you start practicing it, it becomes discipline, and you know, right from the time you got up till the time you went to bed, there were a number of things that happened. Number of exciting things, number of mundane things, and then a few not so good things, which could include criticism. Now, during that time of reflection, you go back to that time when a criticism happened, either written or verbal or oral, and then you see, why did this criticism happen? And many times I've realized that the criticism is justified, that I was at fault, and then it's a learning opportunity for you to ensure that that criticism does not happen again. On the contrary, it could be a reflection that says, well, it was unjustified. But rather than seek revenge and go back and destroy the relationship and destroy your own mental balance by seeking revenge and hitting back, I think the best antidote to handling criticism, apart from the learning lessons and reflecting, would be to just ignore it and move on. In fact, University of California, Chapel Hill psychologist, Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, in her research has found something called the positivity ratio. So criticism is a negative experience. And in order to erase that negative criticism, or one negative thought, negative experience, you need to have three different thoughts to actually, three positive thoughts rather, to actually erase that negative thought. So I think diligently, if you practice that, even criticism becomes just part and parcel. Ignore where required, reflect where required, learn those lessons and move on, because I think life is much more beautiful than being pained and distressed at criticisms. Number one, the Holy Bible. As I said, that's been the mantra for success because it's a guidebook for various things across life. The second important book that had a tremendous impact was Daniel Kahneman's book on Thinking Fast and Slow, which was a Nobel Prize winning psychologist who won it for behavioral economics. Then there are too many books to be listed because, as I said, I read at least 1 to 2 books in a week, and there are many books that have influenced me in more ways than one. But I think singling out, these two have been tremendous influences. Always look at failures as opportunities, to never give up, follow your passion and to pursue happiness, which is a journey by itself, and continue to be curious, continue to explore, continue to think young, and continue to make a mark. And I think that's what has made the journey so exciting so far. As I said, every journey starts with a destination, but life's journeys don't have a clear destination. We might plan for the future, but more often than not, the future is VUCA. VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But in that, you take every day as it comes and make the best of every single day and do the best in every single day and continue to do your best till your last breath. So my next is my next minute, my next hour, my next day, and my next passion. Here was somebody who touched lives, who made a difference, gave love, was compassionate, and made a difference. Very similar to what I said earlier. The difference between an entrepreneur, a startup, and the rest of us is we all have ideas, we all look for opportunities, we all see opportunities, but the difference is the entrepreneur and the startup is taking that next big step, a leap of faith and that leap of risk to make that idea and opportunity a reality. I would also like to encourage and remind them once again that we live in a golden age of abundance. This is validated by research by Harvard University's Steven Pinker, by Hans Rosling. It might be a good idea for entrepreneurs to read a book called Factfulness or subscribe to a website called gapminder.com, which actually validate through statistics that the world is an increasingly exciting place, full of opportunities and full of growth. And another very important message for anybody, not just entrepreneurs and startups, is that be conscious about what you read, what you see, what you hear, whom you meet and talk to, and be conscious about it. Because the wrong kind of reading, the wrong kind of visuals, the wrong kind of relationships can completely mess up your beautiful future, which is laid out. The right kind of people, the right kind of reading, the right kind of materials, the right kind of exposure, the right kind of relationships can give lasting, meaningful peace. And last but not the least, there's plenty of neurological evidence that says giving is better than taking. So be a giver, not just a taker. Give your knowledge, give your wisdom, give your happiness, give your compassion, and most importantly, give your love to everybody around you.